All right, so for today's explainer, we're going to jump back in time, about 2,000 years, to unpack a conflict that literally tore a community apart over dinner. Yeah, it's a wild story about meat, idols, and a crisis of conscience that has some, well, surprisingly relevant lessons for us today. I know, it sounds a little dramatic, right? But in the ancient Roman city of Corinth, this wasn't just some theoretical question. For this brand new community of Christians, it was a real, full-blown crisis, one that was threatening to break them apart from the inside, all because of what was on their plate.
So, to really get what was going on, we have to put ourselves in their world. And their world was, and this is not an exaggeration, completely saturated with religion.
I mean, literally everywhere. Just try to imagine walking through a city where pretty much every public building, every fountain you drink from, every bathhouse you go to, it's all dedicated to some Greek or Roman god. It wasn't just, a part of their culture. It was the culture. It was the air they breathed. And this right here is such a crucial point. See, temples weren't these quiet, stuffy places you just visited for an hour on the weekend. No. They were the absolute hubs of social life. You'd go there for weddings, for birthday parties, even for business meetings. So if you wanted to have any kind of public life, you had to interact with the temple.
The source material for this explainer uses this analogy, and it just nails it. For your average Corinthian, this whole idol-centric culture, it wasn't weird. It was just normal as water is to a fish.
Okay, so you get the picture. Religion is everywhere. Now let's see how this created a massive, daily problem for the city's new Christians. Well, it's pretty simple, actually. In that culture, the local temples, they were also the city's butchers. See, most animals were first sacrificed to a god, and then they were butchered. And that meant almost all the meat you could buy or eat in the entire city had at some point been offered to an idol.
So, for these new believers, this created a whole series of what felt like impossible choices every single day. Your cousin's getting married at the temple. Do you go and eat the food? The best cuts of meat are at the local market, but you know where it came from. Do you buy it? Your friend who isn't a Christian invites you over for dinner. What do? Suddenly, every meal is a social and ethical landmine.
And as you can imagine, this daily dilemma, it pretty quickly split this small church into two camps, each with a totally different way of seeing the problem.
And this is really the heart of the conflict. So on one side, you have a group they called the strong, and their argument was basically, look, we know idols are just wood and stone. They're nothing. They have no real power. So the meat is just meat. We are free to eat it. But on the other side, you had the weak, and they were saying, whoa, hold on. We just came out of that world. For us, eating that meat feels like we're right back in it, like we're actually participating in idol worship. It really bothers our conscience.
Now, it can be kind of hard for us to really get what the weak were feeling. But Dr. Gary Meadors, the source for this explainer, he shares this personal story that just makes it all click.
You see, before he became a Christian, his only experience with pool tables was in these rowdy bars, a world he had just decided to leave behind. So for him, that sound was powerfully connected to his old life.
So in that moment, his past associations completely defined his reality. In his mind, pool tables equaled a bad environment. So Christians playing pool, it just didn't compute. His conscience couldn't make that leap yet.
And that's the whole point. The weak in Corinth, they weren't just being difficult. They were like this, sincerely struggling. Their whole worldview was changing, and their conscience needed some time to catch up with what their minds were just starting to understand.
So how in the world did the Apostle Paul solve this huge church-splitting debate? Well, he didn't just give them a rule. Instead, he gave them something revolutionary, a principle.
First, he acknowledged that, yeah, the strong were technically correct. An idol is nothing. The meat is just meat. But then he makes this radical turn and says that being correct isn't actually the most important thing here.
And with that one phrase, he completely reframes the whole debate. He's saying, look, the goal here isn't to prove how right you are or to show off your superior knowledge. The goal is to build up the community, and you do that through love.
And his entire solution really hinges on this powerful idea of a stumbling block. He's basically saying that your freedom, your right to do something, it stops when it becomes an obstacle that might cause someone else who's struggling to trip and fall in their faith.
He taught them to ask a totally different question. The question wasn't, do I have the right to do this? The question became, how will this action affect my brother or my sister? The health of the community suddenly became way more important than just exercising an individual right.
So okay, A 2,000-year-old debate about idol meat, it might seem a little distant, but the core question it raises is incredibly relevant for all of us, right here, right now.
That core tension the Corinthians felt, that push and pull between what I have a right to do and what is best for my community, it's all around us. We see it in big debates about public health, we see it in the way we argue with each other online, and we see it anytime we have to figure out how to live together in our diverse societies.
It's a tough question, right? There's no easy one-size-fits-all answer. But it's the question that, just like the Corinthians, we have to keep asking ourselves and each other, at what point does my freedom become a stumbling block for someone else? Thanks for joining this explainer.